After wrapping up my look back at the special edition collector's line from ToyBiz, the 12-inch line of action figures for Lord of the Rings, I thought it would be fun to turn my attention back to the 6-inch line, and in particular some of these deluxe horse and rider sets that they did, which were pretty interesting and quite different. And again, it is a testament to the experimentation that ToyBiz were willing to employ during this era. And I'm going to start with my personal favourite, which is the Ring Wraith and horse. Now, in terms of the packaging, this will look pretty familiar because it was the same consistent branding across all their lines and scales. This time we have red packaging. It is specifically for the Fellowship of the Ring, and we can see obviously this wonderful window display. We have the runic icons down the side panels there, and we can see just about in the background there, we can see the Middle-earth map, which is really cool. In the right hand corner we have that image of the Ring Wraith, which has been taken from the film, which is very nicely done, and this works really well. On the side panel we see the continuation of the Middle-earth map, which is pretty cool. We have a little bit of information about what this set is, but underneath we have this fantastic promotional image which was used in all the adverts to advertise this figure, and I think it's really cool. I love how they recreated that Middle-earth setting for this figure, and it looks fantastic. And if we flip the packaging on the back, we can see a fair amount of text here describing the film and what this character is all about, which is great. We can see the other figures in this set, and we have some of the action features on the right hand side. And if we take a closer look at those images at the bottom of the packaging, which as I said are used for the promotional materials, these look very nice. They're very effective and evocative. I think they've done a really nice job of making these figures look as if they are living in Middle-earth, and they definitely sell them to me. So let's start off by looking at the Ring Wraith figure himself. This is a very nicely produced figure. You can see he's got a cloth costume, which is a very nice touch for essentially a 6-inch line of action figures, which traditionally would be plastic or rubber. So this looks really nice. The presentation is pretty spot on, really. Ordinarily, I would talk about the head sculpt. Obviously, there is no head. That is how they've solved this problem of the faceless Ring Wraith. He does have a rubber piece though for a head sculpt there. Obviously, this will impact on the articulation, as we'll see a little bit later, because you can't really turn it. It is just a rubber piece, but it is nicely sculpted and accurately recreates what we see on screen. If we look at his torso, we can see that there is a hard plastic body underneath, but over it there is this fantastic material, cotton material cloak, which looks really good. It's very effective and pretty authentic. So I think this looks fantastic. It looks quite rich and quite sumptuous. But then we can see there's some detailing there around the belt, and particularly in the sword hilt, and of course the sheath as well. There's lots of different paint apps here where we can see individual scratches to make this look weather worn and lived in, which is fantastic and just gives it a realistic texture. If we roll the sleeves up, we can see the gauntlet underneath, which is absolutely fantastic. Again, this is beautifully sculpted and it's very nicely painted. Lots of blacks and silver washes running through this to make it look authentic, which is fabulous. Again, we can see the same thing at the bottom of the cloak. We can see this sort of spattered mud effect, which is brilliant, and this goes even onto the boot as well. So a lot of detail here that is hidden by this cloak, but a fantastic sculpt and just a lot of attention to detail, which is glorious. So I think they've done a really beautiful job of the paint apps and the overall look and feel of this figure. As you can see, he does come with this sword in his sheath, which is great. You can pull this out, and again, what a fantastic sculpt, and look at those paint apps. Isn't that fantastic? Just a lot of detail in here, a lot of washes to make this look really authentic. You can even see that the blade's got individual jagged cuts running up the side of it where it's had many battles, and I think this looks absolutely fantastic. He has no problems holding this blade. As you can see, he's got a nice tight grip. This feels very snug in his hand here. And that's not all, because there's also an action feature. There's a button on the back of his back that if you press this will also trigger the action feature of his arm swishing, which is perfect if you want to recreate any action sequences. Now, articulation is a little bit limited for this figure, and in particular for ToyBiz of this time, a little bit surprising, but of course he has no head to move, so there's nothing that can be done there. He does seem to have a ball joint in the shoulder, which will allow the arm to come out a little bit. There's definitely a joint at the elbow that allows the arm to hinge up and down, and there is a swivel at the wrist as well, which will allow that wrist to rotate 360 degrees. He does have a thigh swivel at the top of his thigh, so he can rotate his leg from side to side, and there is also a hinge at the knee, which this seems to be a rubber piece, but it actually hinges successfully, so you can hold that in place. There's no articulation at the ankle though, because this foot is just rubber. Now, as much as I love the Ring Wraith, I have to say I think it's the horse that is the star of this show. I think this is an absolutely fantastic mould. This is a really, really brilliant figure, beautifully sculpted and fantastically painted. As you can see here, what a fantastic portrait. This looks like a real horse. I just think it's so wonderfully sculpted, so realistic. It is essentially a rubber piece over a plastic skeleton underneath, but it's so beautifully sculpted and just wonderfully painted. Like, it just comes to life with all the detail and washes that they've got here. And if we look at these reins as well, if we pull them, there's an action feature, so when we pull that, not only does the mouth open, but the eyes light up with that fantastic red. I think this is absolutely tremendous and just out of this world and so unexpected for this time. Again, if we look at the body of the horse here, we can see the saddle, we can see the detail, we can see the veins, we can see the ribs of this horse, which is amazing. But again, the saddle there with all the paint washes to make it look authentic and lived in and real, which is just fantastic. If we look at the back of the horse, we can see its tail, which is a rubber piece. This can be moved around. Again, it just looks great. I just think the sculpting and the paint apps are just so meticulous and so well realised. This is such a fantastic and just very realistic looking toy. It's brilliant stuff. There's also an action feature here that when you press this button, his legs, his front hooves move, which I think is brilliant. You can recreate that sort of galloping effect. And whilst we're talking about the legs, look at the mud splashback on those hooves and on those lower legs. Doesn't that look absolutely brilliant? As we've seen, those legs are articulated. If we look at the back legs, which have slightly less articulation, there is a hinge at the top of the leg. There's also a hinge at the lower hoof as well, which will allow you to articulate this. The front leg has slightly more articulation, but of course has that wonderful action feature as well. And when we place the Ring Wraith on top of the horse, there's even little stirrups there to put his legs through, so he looks properly secure when he's riding them, which is fantastic. And wow, what an impressive figure set this is. It just looks absolutely amazing. Now, I know I'm gushing quite a bit because this figure just really surprised me, just how amazing it is. Again, we have to think back all the way to the very early 2000s, and it's just further evidence of ToyBiz just really experimenting, pushing the boat out and doing things very differently to anyone else, any other toy companies at this time. And I just think, yes, the articulation is fantastic. Yes, the detailing is amazing. The costume is brilliant. The sculpting is fantastic. The accessories are wonderful. And then these action features on top of all of that just really push it over the edge. I mean, this is incredible to think that we're getting this in a mainstream toy for a mass audience way back when. This is incredible. Something like this now would probably be some kind of specialist HasLab project, I'm sure, because it's so cool, and it's just so detailed and so much effort has gone into this figure, and they've thought of everything and they're throwing everything at it, and I just think it looks brilliant. The results just speak for themselves. This is a fantastic looking set, a wonderful character, beautifully realised, and just has such longevity on the shelf for me. He's just always going to be on display because he's so cool, it's so different looking, and it's just so wonderfully detailed. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and remember to subscribe, as there'll be plenty more videos soon.